to introduce some of our sisters from the Upsilon Master Group. If we could get Wanda Kenyon, Norma Ogan, Jerry Mulkey, and Sandy Sparks to come up.
Okay, it was 47 years ago that Beta Psi organized us into a chapter of Delta Zeta. We were first called Gamma Chi, but because that was a mistake, International changed us to Delta Zeta. We've been that ever since, and we remember all the fun we had in those days.
But they wanted you to know this is Jerry Mulkey, this is Sandy Sparks, this is Norma Ogan, I'm Wanda Kenyon, and we were the first members in Monmouth.
Okay. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "Nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm." And there are certainly plenty of enthusiasm, and there was tons of enthusiasm involved with putting this venture together with all of my sisters. We had sisters who loaned us vintage clothing. Lingerie on the stage is from a collection of one of our sisters, and you're welcome to come up afterwards and look at it once the show's over if you didn't get a chance to look at some of that. We all gained a new knowledge about fashion through the decades. Talking to different people and trying to gather these outfits from different people. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the show today as much as Laureate Alpha Iota sisters did putting it together for you. And now I'd like to introduce Jocelyn Wagner. She's with Vintage Adventures, which is located in Scioto, Oregon, and she'll be doing our historical commentary today for the show. Jocelyn?
Thank you. Join you for an adventure through some of the history of Beta Sigma Phi's collection of vintage clothing gathered from their friends and family. The collected stories allow our models to move through into another era for just a few minutes and take you with them. So some of the accessories you see today have come from my vintage clothing collection, which I enjoy sharing at events like this. And but where possible, we have put the actual piece that was worn with the dress or outfit, and then if not, we added a piece appropriate to the era. As you know, Beta Sigma Phi started in the 1930s, so will we. The decade saw the first true distinction between the evening clothes and what people wore during the day. During the affluent era of 1920s, women could easily get away with wearing very elaborate clothing as long as the house domestic servants, took care of the chores. However, hard times during the Depression caused many women to do more work at home themselves. Simple skirts and pared-down outfits allowed their ease of movement, and in the evening they donned very elaborate clothing that was inspired by Hollywood. Of course, DuPont's development of the nylon during the era would have a huge impact on clothing. Nancy Weber Files. Nancy begins our show with a hand-crocheted dress made in 1932 by her grandmother, Cora Luella Weber. Times were hard, so Cora made her own dress for the graduation of her daughter, Marjorie. The vintage piece features the original black satin ribbon gathering both the puff sleeves and the waist. And notice that the elastic was hand-stitched into the waistband to assure a perfect fit. Nancy added the black ankle strap shoes and of course we added her stylish hat to complete the ensemble. Nancy's mother, Cora, loved being a member of Beta Sigma Phi in the 1950s in Oregon City. Thank you, Nancy. Marie Kester. Cora Luella Weber was a skilled dressmaker and also put her hand to knitting this dress in 1932. The dress featured short sleeves and a lovely flare at the hemline. Its simple elegance with its sleek line were favored during that era, but the dress was a timeless style. It has been part of Nancy Weber's outfit for over 50 years. Her wardrobe. We have capped this outfit with a lovely eggshell clip. And of course, gloves were called for on almost every occasion. The pattern for the dress was intricate, and Cora must have spent many hours making it. What a treasure. Thank you, Marie. Debbie Drager. This 1930s replica and hat were borrowed from Debbie's friend Tina Tate. The dress is well designed and the fabric is reminiscent of that which would have been used in the 1930s, as it has a graceful filigree appearance and adds to the long, lean look made popular by Hollywood in the 30s. Of course, evening attire required gloves for any formal occasion, and we have added an authentic beaded purse from that era. Debbie is a sorority sister of Laureate Alpha Iota and has been a member of Beta Sigma Phi for 30 years. Thank you, Debbie. Brandy Tyler. Brandy wears an elegant jacket over a 1930s black Kaffler and Sobel, and we should have a drum roll now, Brandy, as Brandy removes the jacket to show this beautiful beaded dress. It is elegantly simple and romantic. Notice that the roses are both appliqued and beaded, both the front and the back. Debbie Drager borrowed the treasure from her friend Marge Tomlin. Like many of the clothes in this show, the dress has quite an interesting history. It belonged to Donna Roberta Fry Marquis of Albany. Donna was born in 1899 after her family came to a ranch on what is now Fry Road in Albany by wagon train. The hat that we have added was purchased not too far from Donna's farm. Thank you, Debbie. She's gone already. Oh, there you are. Tracy Johansson. The Polk County Museum in Rickreall loaned this 1930s dress in honor of the memory of Rita Montgomery, a Beta Sigma Phi sorority sister who volunteered many hours at the museum. As Rita was fond of saying, there is always a pearl of wisdom. We have chosen accessories with the finest pearls in her memory. Tracy's graceful presentation adds to this lovely tribute. It's a beautiful dress and a lovely young lady. Thank you, Tracy. The 1940s were dominated by World War II. Rationing affected everything. women found themselves filling jobs that were previously held by men. And Rosie the Riveter was a patriotic figure. Eve Lee. We're ready to move on into 1942. Eve Lee. Jill Johnson's mother, Earlene Hawkins, wore this prom dress in Salem, Illinois, for her junior-senior prom in 1942. Her parents didn't have the money for a prom dress, but the school had a closet with clothing for those who needed it. And that's where she found this gem. Isn't it beautiful? Her date was Wayne Sumner, and they were married the following year. Our model, Eve, found a cocktail hat to suit her style. It looks really great. Lee Yifei, is from Chirifeng, China. She's a business student at Western Oregon University. Thank you, Eve. But first, let me remind you of the influence of World War II on brides and their grooms. Weddings were often timed to suit military leave, and servicemen customarily wore their uniforms, while brides contended with rationing of fabrics, especially the natural ones like silk. They were very hard to obtain. With so many restrictions, brides of the 40s had to rely on their friends and family and their own ingenuity to marry in style. Mrs. Prudy Drager. Lovely. Please welcome Debbie Drager's mother-in-law. Mrs. Drager is wearing her own wedding dress, which was made for her by her mother in 1943. Prudy Lien's parents immigrated from Norway, and she was the first generation born in the U.S. Her mother measured her for this gown in the fall, and she didn't even try it on until the day she was married. She knew it would be perfect and beautiful as it is today. There wasn't enough satin when her mother made it to do the whole dress, so she just made the underdress and put the organza over the top. Isn't that lovely? But she could manage only enough of the organza to make short sleeves rather than long sleeves. This dress was clearly a labor of love, as Prudy's mother finished all of the seams by hand. And look at the tiny little snaps and the tucks at the waist to assure a perfect fit. It looks just great. We're honored to have you show this dress. Thank you, Mrs. Drager. Daniela Weiniger. Earlene Hawkins' mother of Jill Johnson married on December 25th, 1943 in sunny and warm Southern California. Jill's mother wore this suit after arriving from her home in Illinois by train to marry Wayne Sumner, who was temporarily stationed with the Army at Long Beach, California. They were married at Wayne's uncle's house in Alhambra. Time has changed the fabric's color, to the current lavender from the original blue, and we added the customary gloves and a hat that just happens to match. Almost perfectly. Thank you, Daniela. Tracy Johansson. Ethel Brenneman Barnett, Diane Risen's mother, wore this military-style dress at her wedding on January 7th, 1944. Just 13 days after the previous two wartime brides, by the way. Ethel was in the Army Nurse Corps and stationed at Fort Francis E. Warren near Cheyenne, Wyoming. Her fiancé, Clarence Barnett, who purchased the dress, was a pilot in the Army Air Corps, which later became the Air Force. Ethel had two military-style hats, but we chose this one because it looked so adorable on Tracy. Ethel and her daughter, Diane Barnett Risen, are sorority members at Epsilon Master. Thank you. The 50s was the first era to use the term teenager and to recognize teenagers as having a separate fashion from the older generations. Teen girls wore full dirndl or circular skirts with large appliques on their clothing. Gail Hemmen. Gail wears her own authentic poodle skirt. Together with her black sweater, white top, red shoes, and bobby socks, this true classic. Wait, I forgot to ask you that. Sure. Look closely at her necklace and you'll see that this lucky girl is even wearing her boyfriend's class ring. Gail's friend made the skirt and slip as a birthday gift 38 years ago, and Gail has worn it to about 25 50s events. Of course, we added the totally 1950s patent leather purse. It's a drum purse, and Gail is a member of Laureate Alpha Iota. We should have a drum roll for that. Thank you, Gail. Willie Dednam. Willie's fur-collared coat was owned by her mother, Catherine. The AFL-CIO union label is dated 1955, long before furs became the subject of controversy. Lynn Lindsay loaned her mother's fur pillbox hat, which is a beautiful complement to the collar on Willie's coat. As some of you may recall, the pillbox hat was made popular by Jacqueline Kennedy in the late 50s. Audrey Hepburn also favored the style both on and off stage. Willie Dedmans is surely ready to have breakfast at Tiffany's, aren't you, Willie? Should the weather turn chilly, Willie can turn up her collar and keep cozy. Willie and Lynn are both members of Laureate Alpha Iota. Thank you, Willie. Raina Jabbar. This beautiful dress, with its gracefully sweeping back, was owned by Rosemary Amato Llewellyn in the 1950s. In 1958, it was the custom for high school graduates to return to Milton Freewater for the annual Girl Ask Boy Snowball Dance. Rosemary was a freshman at Eastern Oregon College and worked part-time at J.C. Penney's. This dress was on sale, and with the addition of her employee discount, she got the dress for only $3. Times have changed, but that was still quite a prize, and I'm sure her date thought so too. Thank you, Raina. Tina Lowe. During the 1950s and 60s, Pendleton of Oregon, our very own company, became something of an American symbol. Its finely crafted, long-lasting items known as investment clothing became standard apparel in many well-to-do households in the country. In 1955, along with Pepsi and Carnation, Pendleton opened an old-style frontier shop. I'm sorry, I meant to call it Eve Lee. Yes, Eve Lee. Thank you. That's okay. Brandy Tyler. All three. Very good example. In 1955, along with Pepsi, Carnation, Pendleton opened an old-style retail shop in Frontier Town at Walt Disney's newly launched theme park. In 1956, the women's wear division introduced its reversible plaid pleated skirts. Aren't they lovely? Thank you, girls. In 1960, Pendleton pioneered washable wool, and the singing group, which would later become the Beach Boys, took the name the Pendletones and donned the Pendleton shirt as their customary uniform. Women of the 1950s sought more daring fashions, however. The pressure for women to look sought more daring fashion. However, the pressure for women to look a certain way also intensified. Dresses used in dance settings reflected this particularly because they relied heavily on exposed arms, collarbones, and backs like never before. Despite the fact that women had the right to vote, to work, and to drive their own cars, as we heard earlier, they chose to wear dresses in the 50s that were made of opulent materials with corseted waists and swirling skirts to mid-calf. As fashion looked to the past, the fashion houses experienced something of a revival and spawned a myriad of star designers who profited hugely from the rapid growth of the media. Throughout the 50s, although it would be for the last time, women around the world continued to submit to the trends of Paris. Givenchy opened its first boutique in 1952. The dresses in the 50s, especially those used for dance events, were driven mainly by high-end designers, not only Christian Dior and also Coco Chanel. Christian Dior's new look revived the popularity of girdles and the all-in-one corselets. In the 1950s, many fashion houses used the interest in foundation wear to launch their own lines. Soon after, many lingerie manufacturers began to build on their own brand. in 1957, Jane Russell, who wore the cantilever bra, advertised it as scientifically designed by Howard Hughes to maximize the voluptuous look. Our next three models are wearing dresses that all belong to Julie Evie's sister, Sandy Mortensen. Although they began in 1959, by the way, they are some of the same models who just left the stage. They spawned into the 1960s. Eve Lee Sandy purchased this dream of a dress in 1959 to wear to a formal high school dance. Are you dancing? Very good. Although proms first began in elite northeastern colleges, middle-class parents admired the poise and composure of debutantes, and Eve Lee certainly has the same, and their escorts, so they instituted strictly chaperoned formal dances as a means of instilling social skills and etiquette in their children. Students may have been taught the waltz, the foxtrot, and the cha-cha, but rock and roll made its way into the dance club, to the dance room and the dances, and it's here to stay, as they say. Thank you, Eve. Tina Lowe. Sandy wore this beauty to a 1962 Sweethearts Ball at Clackamas High School. The skirt, the cummerbund, and the cummerbund are dotted Swiss, which I learned can be flocked, woven, or embroidered dots on sheer, crisp cotton fabric. Although the teenagers had a dramatic influence over fashion later in the decade, in 1962, prom dresses remained sweet and demure, such as the one Tina is wearing. Thank you very much, Tina. Vicki Swede. Sandy wore this dress in 1966, May 7th, 1966 to be exact. This exquisite blue chiffon dress and its dainty duster was purchased by as Sandy's wedding dress. Some of you may remember that the top wedding songs for the 60s included Roy Orbison's Pretty Woman, Spiral Staircases, I Love You More Today Than Yesterday, but did you know that Chubby Checker's Twist made the list? Oh my God. I don't imagine, Vicki, you know how to do the twist, do you? That's all right. I couldn't remember either. It's also the same year the Beatles toured, and that's quite an anniversary to share. You're doing a beautiful job. Thank you, Vicki. Julie Evie. Julie Evie has been with Beta Sigma Phi since 1980 and is the current president of her chapter, Laureate Alpha Iota, as well as president of the Dallas Monmouth Council of Beta Sigma Phi. Thank you, Julie. The 1960s were known as the Age of Youth. 70 million children entered from the post-war baby boom era, became teenagers,
and young adults. The movement away from the conservative 50s continued and eventually resulted in revolutionary ways of thinking and real change in the cultural fabric of the American life. No longer content to be images of the generation ahead of them, young people wanted change. The changes affected education, values, lifestyles, laws, and entertainment. Many of the revolutionary ideas, which began in the 60s, continue to evolve today. Jan Lowe. This 1960s dress suit was owned by Teddy Baker, who wore it to work in Burbank, California, as a secretary for the Lockheed Corporation. Teddy considered this smart-looking suit dress with its check jacket and red trim matronly. But remember, it was in an era when there were mini skirts, hot pants, and go-go boots. But when a Lockheed executive told Teddy that more conservative dress would be necessary for promotion, Teddy switched to suits. It worked. She became the youngest secretary to be promoted to work with the Lockheed executives. Thank you, Jan. Jan's a member. Our model Jan is a member of Laureate Alpha Iota. Joy Sweet. Jill Johnson's mother owned this graceful caftan in the 1960s. Caftans, like other styles of the 60s, reflected the celebration of diversity. Caftan-like garments were worn by several cultures. This one has a distinctly Asian influence. They were often worn as hostess gowns for casual entertaining at home. Joy may have been hosting a discussion group, as there was an emergence of an interest in expanded thought, and women were encouraged to think independently. Another popular use of the caftan, and one Jill's mother favored, was to don this robe as a lounging outfit. Joy's given name is Sui Kihui, and she's a business student at Western Oregon University. She is from Shenyang, China. Welcome, Kihui. Thank you. Roseanne Boyce. Roseanne wears her sweetheart's Letterman sweater from 1968. She has appropriately paired it with blue jeans, a white top, white kids, and her sweetheart's class ring. Good work, Roseanne. You kept the sweater, the ring, and touchdown! You kept your sweetheart. Roseanne and Ron Boyd celebrate their 40th wedding anniversary next month. Is that right? September. Thank you, Roseanne. Roseanne's a member of Laureate Alpha Iota. Thank you. Daniela Weiniger. Do you remember the jumpsuit? That jumpsuit has a lot of attitude. As it should. This champagne-colored jumpsuit was popular in the 60s and 70s, and this one was owned by Teddy Baker, who was lucky enough to wear it to the 1969 Academy Awards in Hollywood, California. A celebratory color for a celebrity occasion, and woohoo, doesn't Daniela do justice? is now a sister of Laureate Alpha Alpha Iota sorority chapter. She's been a member of Beta Sigma Phi since the 70s. By the 1970s, it was nearly impossible to tell what was in fashion and what was not. Some of us remember. The choices for available clothing had become very diverse during these decades of rapid social revolution and change. It was anything goes in terms of fashionable clothing. By the late 1970s, popular styles had turned somewhat more conservative, but the freedom of choice inspired by the previous 2 decades would live on. Brandy Tyler. This fitted suit was owned by Debbie Drager's paternal grandmother, Ina May Oliver. Ina May wore it in the 1970s, and it's still immaculate, which is consistent with all of Ina's clothing according to her family. She would have been pleased to know that the suit is being modeled by their family friend Brandy Tyler, who recognized a great opportunity to dress it up with this colorful breton and matching gloves. Thank you, Brandy. Nancy Bliven. Nancy is wearing a mink coat originally owned by Dolores Tiernan of Dallas, Oregon. Dolores bought the coat in 1970, had her signature sewn into the lining, and wore it until her death at the age of 93. Although minks were becoming controversial, it's important to remember they are an important part of Oregon history, as they were the reason the Oregon Territory was formed. Dennis Tiernan gave the love coat to a family friend, Nancy Bliven, or Nancy B1, as her sorority sisters know her. Nancy is a member of Alpha Master and has been in sorority since 1969. Thank you, Nancy. Vicki Sweet. Jill Johnson wore this mini as a going away dress after her wedding in 1979. Ignaz of California designed this velvety dress, but Jill added the lace. Brides have been using lace in their weddings since the 15th century. But we added the raffia bubble hat to emphasize the 70s spirit. Something old and something very definitely 70s. Our model, Vicki, is a student at Western Oregon University. She majors in business. Vicki's given name is Sui Hun, and she is also from Shenyang, China. Thank you, Vicki. Well done. Okay. Roseanne Boyce. Julie Evie purchased this dress to attend a dance at Clackamas Community College in 1970. Then, in 1971, she wore it to what was dubbed Oregon's Woodstock Festival. The festival was Governor McCall's Vortex 1, which was held at Minlow-McIver State Park in Clackamas County near Estacada to distract young anti-war protesters away from the American Legion's convention in Portland. It was a great success in the age of Aquarius, when this dress would have been the rage, and the beads adorned many a head, as we have adorned Rosemary's. Roseanne. Thank you, Roseanne. Raina Javar. Raina's bell-bottom pantsuit is the one given to Willie Devnam by a close friend who made one for her and one for her new husband as going-away outfits after their wedding. That was 1977, and the style is both very hip and it does have a Western flair. Those were the days when men began to break the clothing mold and women began to feel just as at home in pants as in a dress. Raina Javar adds a fun hat and her personality for extra flair. Thank you, Raina. Danielle Weiniger. Here it is, a red, white, and blue bicentennial maxi. Wouldn't the Founding Fathers have been pleased to see this all-American dress commemorating our nation's 200th anniversary? Well, the movement in the 70s was all about freedom. Jill Johnson bought this maxi in San Luis Obispo, California for the bicentennial celebrations. 30 years later, our model, Daniela Weiniger, became an American citizen. Today, we've taken the liberty of adding the 70s style hat. The 1980s saw a definite rise in the popularity of designer styles. Wealthy people purchased directly from designer lines, while mass producers replicated the high fashions for the general public. Power and money dominated the styles and almost everything else in the 1980s. Think padded shoulders, the return of the peplum, and belted waist. The 80s also saw the return of the glamorous evening dress, which contrasted greatly with the professional look for career women, and integrated bright and brilliant colors with plenty of glitter, embroidery, sequins, and beading. By the late 1980s, evening dresses were made from elasticized fabrics which hugged the body and were short and often strapless or had tiny shoulder straps. Joy Sweet. This professional-looking dress belonged to Jill Johnson. Jill wore the dress to her job interview with the Central School District in 1982. Apparently, it made a very good impression, as Jill is still working there. Jill is a member of Laureate Alpha Iota, and she was instrumental in putting this fashion show together today. And it's a very nice choice of hats you have there, Joy. Thank you. Well modeled. Randy Hill. This wonderfully red dress is owned by Janice Gordon, who is a member of Laureate Alpha Iota. She wore it to the 1987 sorority dinner as the Valentine Queen for the Xi Gamma Zeta chapter. This designer used ruching and cap sleeves to add to the graceful line. Janice bought the dress on sale at Meyer & Frank at $30. It's hard to believe. Quite a bargain. And the sorority dinner was held right here in this room. Very hot. Thank you, Randy. Ashley Jackson. Don't you love that hair? This dynamite number belongs to Cindy Cobine Dale, who must have been quite a splash when she wore it to her 10-year Central High School class reunion in 1988. I wouldn't know if she wore her hair that way too. The dress combines the vibrant colors and form-fitting features characteristic of the 80s. And the ruffles at the hip and the straight skirt add quite a lot of flair. Cindy has been a member of sorority for 28 years and coordinated today's event. I can tell you that took a lot of hands. And Ashley is the youngest member of Laureate Alpha Iota. Ashley lives in Independence and works at Western Oregon University. Thank you, Ashley. By the 1990s, women began to reject the moneyed designer styles of the 80s and opt for more comfortable casual clothing. In the early 90s, the basic slip dress made from soft crepe fabrics became popular. By the mid-90s, the full-skirted, short, strapless evening gowns re-emerged. Also fashionable were lace or elaborately decorated bustiers and with fitted evening clothes. Black was the color of choice. Tina Lowe. We all fell for this dress. Which was Jan Lowe's, whom you met earlier as a model. She wore it to the 1997 Elks Officers installation. It has a dropped waist, which was favored in the 1920s, that wonderful bling and padded shoulders, all of which are very flattering. And when Tina added a hat, she became an instant candidate for a Hollywood movie. Tina Lowe's given name is Tien Tien. She graduated from Western Oregon University in March with a degree in business. Tina's home is in Beijing, China, and she does a lovely job of modeling. Thank you, Tina. Raina Javar. Jan Lowe, whose closet we would all like to see, also owned this dress. She wore it to the Elks Officers incoming celebration in 1996. The playful polka dots were a favorite motif in the 80s and 90s, and they added unmistakable whimsy to Raina's gown, which is an excellent example of the 90s. The brilliant pink, accented by the black skirt, is romantic, isn't it? Well, the 1990s have become known as the romantic era. Perhaps Raina is going to a nightclub, which... Thank you, Raina. buying her own dress by popular designer Carol Anderson. She bought it in the late 80s at Nordstrom's, but it has such a classic style that she wore it into the 90s and beyond. Not only to work in, but as a teacher, but she also could easily wear it to go out to dinner, even somewhat formally when she added heels and maybe a cocktail hat, as we've done. Very chic, Randy, and she models like a pro. Randy is a member of Laureate Alpha Iota. Much excitement surrounded our entry into the second millennium. All kinds of people made all kinds of predictions, and all kinds of us, or most of us, entered with some anticipation about what was to come. However, those of us who'd been around for a while, at least, knew that we had already set our own course to the degree possible for the future. But now to enter in this millennium is Jan Lowe. Very nice. Jan brings us images of other galaxies in this gossamer pantsuit. She appears to us as a planetary messenger to welcome us to life among the galaxies. Perhaps one who sees into the future. The Epcot Center held Millennium celebrations for 4 months. Boy, that Millennium went fast. All right. Rachel Helt. This is new age, isn't it, Rachel? Rachel wears the prom dress she wore to the Central High School homecoming dance in 2011. That was Rachel's first dance ever. This fascinating dress has a silver and black cheetah pattern draped across the top and a solid black skirt to match. The fabric is polyester and spandex. And Rachel accessorized with silver beaded necklace, bracelet, and earrings to match. She is attending the Halo program in Independence to complete her education before she continues to college, where she wants to study fashion design. All right. That's great. Good luck, Rachel, and thank you. Tracy Johansson. Tracy purchased this little black and tan. Yeah, it is little. Cocktail dress at BB's, which is a technologically savvy store, like most, if not all, targeting today's youth. It has both an online and a physical location. Tracy wore, look at those shoes. Tracy wore this to a wedding in Las Vegas. I hope he didn't walk. Tracy was in Delta Zeta sorority and is the daughter of Jill Summers. Jill has been in sorority since 1984 and is a current member of Laureate Alpha Iota chapter in Monmouth. And Jill has another model in today's show. Now stick around, Tracy. Those vaporize. Ashley Jackson. Ashley is as well attached to technology as she is well dressed. In this newly purchased sleek evening dress, the fabric fabric is both serious and sensuous, as it amplifies her femininity, but speaks of a young woman who is determined and no doubt capable of having fun, like her sister Tracy. So she and her sister Tracy may well be headed for one of Portland's nightclubs to listen to music and dance the night away. These young adults give us great hope for a promising future. Thank you, Ashley and Tracy. And I'd like to say thank you to Cindy, Cobine Gale. Oh, I have some things. Oh, you were good. Okay. That's a good one. Good thing that Cindy is technologically savvy, because I think I sent her 1,972 emails. Oh, she counts better than I do. Julie Evie. Jill Johnson. All of whom were at least coordinating the fashion show with me. I know there were many, 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 many more in Laureate Alpha Iota to thank, and I do. And also, Jill Summers coordinated the music, which was a tremendous relief to me, and a wonderful job. Thank you, Jill. Rod Killen gave us lots of technical assistance. And Starla, and the others who helped with the staging backstage. I think there are a few people backstage too, which you'd be surprised when clothes are flying around. People trying to figure out which one they go out in next. So thank you very much, and to a lovely audience. Thank you.